We've learned a man convicted of killing his fiancée in 2018 is now trying to appeal his guilty verdict. Patrick Frazee is serving life in prison after being convicted of killing Kelsey Berreth in Teller County.
November 22nd, 2018, Thanksgiving Day. Kelsey Berreth pushed her shopping cart through a Colorado Safeway, her one-year-old daughter Kaylee secure in the car seat. The surveillance footage shows a normal mother doing normal things, buying groceries, planning a holiday meal. But here's what that camera didn't capture: the twisted game that was waiting for her at home. 10 days later, Kelsey's mother would call the police. Her daughter had vanished without a trace, leaving behind her car, her makeup, her entire life. The only clue? Blood everywhere. Splattered on walls, soaked into furniture, covering surfaces throughout her condo. Someone had spent hours meticulously scrubbing the scene, trying to erase what happened, but they left behind just enough evidence to reveal a truth more horrifying than anyone imagined. This is the story of Kelsey Berreth, and the red flags that scream when love becomes a deadly game. Growing up on a hay farm in Moses Lake, Washington, Kelsey Berreth was surrounded by wide-open skies and endless possibilities. Born on September 15, 1989, she spent her childhood driving tractors and maneuvering hay bales alongside her brother, developing the strong work ethic that would define her character. But it was the crop dusters soaring overhead that truly captured her imagination, planting seeds of a dream that would carry her far from the family farm. Her uncle Scott Morin described Kelsey as a light who lit up a room, the kind of person whose warmth and energy drew others naturally. This magnetic personality, combined with unwavering determination, propelled her toward her aviation goals with single-minded focus. After high school, Kelsey enrolled in a flight program at a local community college, where she transformed childhood fascination into professional expertise. The rigorous training suited her perfectly. She thrived under pressure and handled stress with remarkable composure. Soon she had her pilot's license and was working as a flight instructor, sharing her passion with students who were inspired by her dedication and skill. By 2015, Kelsey had built an independent, fulfilling life in Washington. Her career was flourishing, her students adored her, and she had found her place in the aviation community. She was confident, self-sufficient, and content with the path she had chosen. Then she met Patrick Frazee on a dating website. Patrick was a cowboy from Colorado, 3 years older than Kelsey, who operated a 35-acre ranch in the tiny town of Florissant. He was a farrier and cattle dog trainer, well respected in his trade, with clients bringing their horses from across the local area. Like Kelsey, he embodied the country lifestyle, quiet, dedicated to his work, and deeply connected to the land. Their connection seemed natural. Both had agricultural backgrounds, both understood hard work and rural values. When they began talking through the dating site, the distance between Washington and Colorado felt manageable compared to the compatibility they discovered. Within months, their long-distance relationship had grown serious enough for Kelsey to consider a dramatic life change. The independent woman who had built her career and identity in Washington was contemplating leaving everything behind for love. Her decision to move to Colorado in 2016 was what those closest to her called a leap of faith. At 27, Kelsey was walking away from the familiar comfort of home, her established career connections, and her support system to start fresh in a new state with a man she had known for less than a year. The move represented everything romantic and impulsive about new love, the belief that when you find the right person, geography becomes irrelevant and risks become worthwhile. Kelsey relocated to Woodland Park, Colorado, ready to build a life with Patrick while continuing her aviation career in a new environment. It was a decision that showed both her capacity for love and her willingness to take chances. Unfortunately, it would also put her directly in the path of the man who would destroy everything she had worked to build. Early 2017 brought news that should have united Kelsey and Patrick forever. She was pregnant. For most couples, this would mark the beginning of deeper commitment, shared living arrangements, and planning for their future as a family. Instead, it revealed the first major red flag in their relationship. Despite their engagement and the impending arrival of their child, Patrick refused to live with Kelsey. Even as she prepared for motherhood in her Woodland Park condo, he remained at his ranch in Florissant, maintaining the physical distance that had characterized their relationship from the beginning. When their daughter Kaylee was born in October 2017, the living arrangement became even more problematic. Here was a new mother, far from her family support system in Washington, trying to navigate parenthood while her fiancé lived separately and showed little interest in changing the situation. The red flag wasn't just the physical distance, it was Patrick's attitude about it. He seemed content with the arrangement that allowed him complete autonomy over his life, while expecting Kelsey to handle the bulk of parenting responsibilities. When she returned to work as a flight instructor, she faced a punishing commute while managing childcare largely alone. Patrick's reluctance to visit Kelsey became a pattern that spoke volumes about his priorities. While she regularly made the trip to his ranch with baby Kaylee, he rarely reciprocated. The relationship had become entirely one-sided, with Kelsey doing all the work to maintain their connection, while Patrick remained comfortably ensconced in his familiar routine. This dynamic created enormous strain on Kelsey, who was trying to balance her demanding career, new motherhood, and a relationship with a man who seemed unwilling to make basic compromises for their family. The exhaustion was evident to those who knew her. She was pouring all her energy into making the relationship work, while Patrick contributed minimal effort. The controlling patterns emerged gradually. Patrick's refusal to move closer wasn't just about convenience or his attachment to the ranch. It was about maintaining complete control over his environment and schedule. He could have Kelsey visit when it suited him, but he never had to adjust his life for her needs or their daughters. More telling was Patrick's expectation that this arrangement was perfectly reasonable. He showed no awareness that asking the mother of his child to manage everything while he maintained his bachelor lifestyle was unfair or unsustainable. In his mind, Kelsey had chosen to move to Colorado, so adapting to his preferences was her responsibility. For Kelsey, who had given up her established life in Washington to be with Patrick, this one-sided dynamic must have been devastating. She had made enormous sacrifices for their relationship, but Patrick seemed unwilling to make even minor adjustments to accommodate their new reality as parents. The engagement that should have represented commitment and partnership had instead become a symbol of Patrick's ability to keep Kelsey at a convenient distance while maintaining complete control over his own life. She was engaged to a man who wanted the benefits of a relationship without any of the responsibilities that came with it. This wasn't love, it was ownership. And Kelsey was slowly discovering that the cowboy she had fallen for online was far different from the man she was trying to build a life with in Colorado. While Kelsey was building what she thought was a life with Patrick, he was maintaining a secret relationship that predated their entire romance by over a decade. Crystal Lee Kenny, a nurse from Idaho, had been Patrick's on and off lover since the early 2000s, a relationship that continued even as he became engaged to Kelsey and fathered a child with her. Kenny wasn't just a casual fling or a mistake from Patrick's past. This was a sustained long-term affair that had spanned years, with Patrick maintaining intimate contact with her throughout his supposedly committed relationship with Kelsey. The affair had resumed in 2016 or 2017, precisely when Patrick should have been focused on his pregnant fiancée and their growing family. This revelation exposed Patrick's capacity for compartmentalization that bordered on the pathological. He could play the role of devoted fiancé and father with Kelsey, while simultaneously conducting an intimate relationship with another woman hundreds of miles away. The level of deception required to maintain both relationships revealed a man with no genuine emotional connection to either woman. But the affair took an even more sinister turn when Patrick began asking Crystal to commit murder for him. Between 2018 and the murder itself, Patrick made 3 separate requests for Kenny to kill Kelsey, each more specific and calculated than the last. First, he asked her to poison Kelsey, providing detailed instructions about how to accomplish the murder without detection. When Kenny refused, Patrick escalated to suggesting she use a pipe as a weapon, again offering specific guidance about timing and method. When that approach was rejected, Patrick moved to his final request, using a baseball bat to kill Kelsey. These weren't spontaneous moments of rage or fantasy. These were calculated murder solicitations from a man who had spent months planning his fiancée's death. Patrick wasn't just cheating on Kelsey, He was actively recruiting his mistress to eliminate her so he could continue his double life without complications. Kenny's refusal to commit these murders didn't deter Patrick. Instead, it revealed his determination to remove Kelsey from his life permanently, while maintaining his relationship with Kenny and avoiding the responsibilities of fatherhood and commitment that Kelsey represented. The most chilling red flag was Patrick's casual approach to these murder requests. According to later testimony, he discussed killing Kelsey with the same matter-of-fact tone he might use to discuss ranch chores. There was no emotional struggle, no recognition of the horror he was contemplating, just practical problem-solving about how to eliminate an inconvenience. This behavior revealed a man who saw both women as objects to be manipulated rather than human beings deserving of love and respect. Kelsey was useful for providing him with a child and the appearance of domestic stability, while Kenny satisfied his sexual and emotional needs without demanding commitment or cohabitation. The man Kelsey thought she was building a future with was actually living multiple lives, none of them genuine. And when those lives became too complicated to manage, Patrick's solution wasn't compromise or honesty. It was murder. November 22nd, 2018. Thanksgiving Day began like any other for Kelsey Berreth. The surveillance footage from Safeway shows her at 12:27 p.m., pushing a shopping cart while 1-year-old Kaylee sat secured in her car seat. Kelsey appeared relaxed, focused on her grocery list, completely unaware that she was being filmed for the last time alive. This ordinary moment, a mother buying groceries for the holiday, would become crucial evidence in piecing together the final hours of Kelsey's life. The timestamp of 12:31 p.m. marked her leaving the store, receipts later found at her home, confirming this routine shopping trip that turned into her final public appearance. When police later questioned Patrick about that day, his story seemed straightforward enough. He claimed he met Kelsey around 1 p.m. for a routine custody exchange in an alleyway outside her condo. According to Patrick, he was taking Kaylee for his turn with their daughter, and during this brief encounter, he returned some of Kelsey's belongings, her house keys, car keys, and a personal handgun he claimed to have been holding for her safety. Patrick told investigators this meeting was their final interaction. He painted Kelsey as emotionally unstable, claiming he'd taken her gun because she was depressed and potentially suicidal. The custody exchange, he insisted, was civil but brief, and afterward Kelsey went into her condo while he left with Kaylee for the holiday. Phone records initially seemed to support Patrick's timeline. Both phones pinged on the same Woodland Park cell tower around the time he claimed they met, and surveillance footage from Walmart showed Patrick between 12:54 and 1:17 p.m. carrying a baby carrier identical to the one Kelsey had used at Safeway. This appeared to corroborate his story about taking custody of their daughter. But technology doesn't lie, even when people do. The neighbor's surveillance camera overlooking Kelsey's front door told a completely different story than the one Patrick had carefully constructed. This camera captured the truth that would destroy his alibi and expose the deception at the heart of his Thanksgiving narrative. At 1:23 p.m., the footage showed Patrick arriving at Kelsey's condo, not leaving after a brief alleyway exchange, but arriving for what would become a much longer visit. More damning still, the camera captured both Patrick and Kelsey entering the condo together, with Kelsey carrying a poinsettia plant she had purchased. Throughout the afternoon, the surveillance camera recorded Patrick going in and out of Kelsey's home multiple times, clearly comfortable and familiar with the space. The final footage of him leaving came at 4:30 p.m., more than 3 hours after he claimed their interaction had ended. Most devastating of all, while the camera captured Patrick leaving multiple times and returning, it never once showed Kelsey leaving the condo after 1:23 p.m. This footage revealed Patrick's entire story as an elaborate lie. There had been no brief custody exchange in an alleyway. Instead, Patrick had spent hours in Kelsey's home while she was never seen leaving alive. The man who claimed to be a concerned ex-fiancé worried about his former partner's well-being had been the last person to see her alive, and he had lied about every detail of their final interaction. The surveillance footage exposed Patrick as a calculating deceiver who had prepared his false narrative in advance, knowing that police would question him about Kelsey's disappearance. He had crafted a story designed to minimize his involvement while positioning himself as the concerned father, simply fulfilling his parenting duties. But cameras don't forget. And Patrick's Thanksgiving deception was about to unravel completely. What happened inside Kelsey's condo on Thanksgiving afternoon was a betrayal so calculated and cruel that it defied comprehension. Patrick Frazee had arrived not for a custody exchange, but to execute a murder plan he had been developing for months. The weapon was already in place, a baseball bat that Patrick had strategically positioned for the attack. But the most chilling aspect of his plan was the psychological manipulation he used to make Kelsey vulnerable to his violence. Patrick lured Kelsey into what he presented as a playful game. He suggested she try to identify different candle scents while blindfolded, making it seem like an innocent romantic activity between two people who shared a child together. Kelsey, having no reason to suspect the man she had once planned to marry would harm her, agreed to participate. She allowed Patrick to blindfold her with a sweater, trusting him completely as he positioned candles around her. In that moment of vulnerability, believing she was playing a harmless game with her daughter's father, Kelsey became defenseless against the attack Patrick had been planning. The first blow came without warning. Patrick struck Kelsey with the baseball bat while she was blindfolded and unable to defend herself. The attack was savage and sustained. Prosecutors later determined he struck her 10 to 15 times, each blow delivered with lethal force. The most heartbreaking detail of this brutal assault was Kelsey's response. According to Crystal Kenny's later testimony, Kelsey's final words were a desperate plea. "Please stop." Even as Patrick was killing her, Kelsey was appealing to whatever humanity might remain in the man who had fathered her child. But Patrick showed no mercy. He continued the assault until Kelsey could no longer speak, no longer fight back, no longer beg for her life. Throughout this horrific attack, 1-year-old Kaylee was in a back room of the condo, placed in her playpen by the father who was murdering her mother just feet away. Patrick had calculated this detail carefully. Kaylee's presence provided cover for his visit, making it appear routine and innocent to any neighbors who might notice his arrival. The psychological cruelty of using his own daughter as unwitting cover for murder revealed the depths of Patrick's depravity. He was willing to traumatize his child, to create a scenario where she might witness or hear her mother's death, all to facilitate his plan to eliminate Kelsey permanently. The blindfold game represented the ultimate violation of trust. Patrick had taken Kelsey's faith in him as Kaylee's father and weaponized it against her. He had used their shared history, their child, and her basic human decency to create the perfect opportunity for murder. This wasn't a crime of passion or a moment of uncontrolled rage. This was premeditated murder disguised as a game, executed with calculated precision by a man who had spent months planning exactly how to kill the mother of his child while maintaining the appearance of innocence. The candle game murder revealed Patrick Frazee as something far more dangerous than an abusive partner or jealous ex-fiancé. He was a calculating killer who could smile while planning murder, who could use his own child as a prop in his deadly scheme, and who could transform a moment of trust into an opportunity for ultimate betrayal. Kelsey Berreth died believing she was playing a game with someone she trusted. The truth was far more horrifying than she could have ever imagined. After murdering Kelsey in her own home, Patrick faced the massive logistical challenge of concealing his crime. The baseball bat attack had created a horrific scene that would immediately reveal what had happened to anyone who entered the condo. Patrick's solution revealed the full extent of his conspiracy with Crystal Kenny. Within hours of the murder, Patrick contacted Kenny in Idaho with urgent demands. Despite her refusal to commit the murder herself, Kenny was now being enlisted as an accessory after the fact. Under threats from Patrick, she began the 13-hour drive from Idaho to Colorado to help him cover up Kelsey's death. When Kenny arrived at the condo, she was confronted with a scene of unimaginable violence. Blood was splattered everywhere, covering walls, soaked into furniture, staining appliances throughout the kitchen and living areas. The attack had been so brutal that evidence of the murder had spread to nearly every surface in the main living space. For hours, Kenny worked methodically to scrub away the evidence of Patrick's crime. She cleaned blood from walls, floors, and every piece of furniture that could be salvaged. Items that couldn't be cleaned, pillows soaked with blood, Kaylee's toys that had been contaminated, soft materials that would forever bear traces of the attack, were carefully removed and disposed of. The cleanup was exhaustive and professional. Kenny understood that missing even small traces of blood could expose Patrick's crime, so she worked with the thoroughness of someone whose life depended on erasing every trace of what had happened. The condo was scrubbed until it sparkled, appearing completely normal to anyone who might visit. But Kenny, either through fear or calculation, made one crucial decision that would later help investigators. She deliberately left blood evidence on the fireplace. This single act of defiance or insurance would eventually provide crucial evidence for prosecutors, proving that massive blood loss had occurred in the condo, despite the extensive cleanup. Meanwhile, Patrick was disposing of Kelsey's body in the most brutal way possible. He transported her remains in a black plastic tote to his ranch in Florissant, where he stored the body temporarily in a barn before burning it completely on November 24th, 2018. Along with Kelsey's body, Patrick burned her bloody Bible and even some of Kaylee's toys that had been contaminated during the attack. The destruction was complete and methodical. Patrick ensured that no physical trace of Kelsey would ever be found, making it impossible for her family to have closure or for investigators to have definitive physical evidence of her death. To create a digital alibi, Patrick sent text messages from Kelsey's phone over several days, making it appear that she was alive and communicating normally. These messages were designed to establish a timeline showing Kelsey was alive after their supposed Thanksgiving encounter, providing cover for Patrick's claims of innocence. The final piece of the conspiracy involved Kenny disposing of Kelsey's phone 700 miles away in Gooding, Idaho. On November 25th, the phone pinged on Idaho's cell towers, creating the false impression that Kelsey had traveled there voluntarily. This geographic misdirection was intended to send investigators searching in the wrong state, while the evidence of murder was being systematically destroyed in Colorado. The cleanup conspiracy revealed both Patrick and Kenny as calculated criminals who understood exactly what they were doing. This wasn't panic disposal of evidence. This was careful, methodical destruction of every trace of a human being's existence. The thoroughness of the cover-up showed that Patrick had planned not just the murder, but every step of concealing it afterward. He had enlisted Kenny as his partner in erasing Kelsey from the world, ensuring that she would simply disappear without a trace. But even the most careful criminals make mistakes, and the evidence they left behind would eventually expose their horrific conspiracy. December 2nd, 2018, 10 days after Kelsey's murder, her mother, Cheryl Berreth, made the phone call that would begin unraveling Patrick's carefully constructed lies. Kelsey had failed to respond to calls and texts for over a week, behavior that was completely out of character for a devoted mother who stayed in constant contact with her family. The Woodland Park Police Department conducted a welfare check at Kelsey's condo, finding her vehicles, makeup, and personal belongings undisturbed. Everything suggested Kelsey had simply vanished mid-routine, leaving behind the life she had built, but taking nothing with her. When investigators contacted Patrick to establish a timeline, his behavior immediately raised red flags. While most people in his position would be frantically worried and eager to help find their missing partner, Patrick appeared strangely detached and uncooperative. Patrick's initial story about their Thanksgiving encounter seemed plausible, but investigators noticed inconsistencies that didn't align with the evidence they were gathering. His claim that he hadn't seen Kelsey since their brief custody exchange began falling apart when surveillance footage told a completely different story. The neighbor's security camera became the smoking gun that destroyed Patrick's alibi. While he claimed their interaction lasted only minutes in an alleyway, the footage showed him arriving at Kelsey's condo at 1:23 p.m. and staying for over 3 hours. More damning, it showed Kelsey entering the condo with him and never leaving. Cell phone records added another layer of evidence contradicting Patrick's timeline. The fake text messages he had sent from Kelsey's phone after her death initially seemed to support his claims that she was alive and communicating. But when investigators analyzed the message patterns and content, they found inconsistencies that suggested someone else was using her phone. The text to Kelsey's employer requesting a week off work was particularly suspicious. Colleagues confirmed this was completely uncharacteristic behavior for someone who was dedicated to her job and would never leave her responsibilities without proper notice or explanation. As the investigation intensified, Patrick's demeanor became increasingly problematic. Instead of the desperate concern expected from a partner whose fiancée had mysteriously disappeared, he showed signs of someone trying to manage and control information. His reluctance to fully cooperate with investigators suggested he was more concerned about protecting himself than finding Kelsey. The surveillance footage from Walmart showing Patrick with Kaylee's car seat initially seemed to support his custody exchange story. But when combined with the neighbor's camera footage, it revealed that Patrick had been moving between locations while Kelsey remained trapped in her condo. On December 14th, police executed a search warrant at Patrick's ranch in Florissant. The timing was strategic. Investigators had gathered enough evidence to justify the search, while Patrick was still unaware that his lies had been completely exposed. 3 days later, the evidence had reached a tipping point. The surveillance footage, phone records, and inconsistent statements had built an overwhelming case against Patrick. On December 21st, 2018, he was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, solicitation to commit murder, and tampering with a deceased human body. The announcement that authorities believed Kelsey was deceased, despite never finding her body, reflected the strength of the evidence they had gathered. The blood evidence, surveillance footage, and digital trail had painted a clear picture of murder, even without physical remains. Patrick's arrest marked the collapse of a deception that had lasted nearly a month. The man who thought he had planned the perfect murder, complete with alibi, cleanup crew, and digital misdirection, had been undone by technology he never considered and evidence he couldn't control. The house of cards he had built with lies, manipulation, and careful timing had finally fallen, exposing the calculated killer who had been hiding behind the facade of a concerned father and devoted partner. Justice for Kelsey Berreth was finally within reach. Patrick Frazee's story reveals one of the most dangerous relationship patterns women can encounter. The man who lives in compartments, keeping different parts of his life carefully separated to avoid accountability or genuine commitment. This wasn't just about infidelity. This was about a psychological framework that made murder inevitable. The most glaring red flag was Patrick's refusal to live with Kelsey despite their engagement and shared child. This wasn't about needing space or maintaining independence. This was about control. By keeping Kelsey at a physical distance, Patrick could manage exactly how much of himself he revealed while maintaining complete autonomy over his daily life. Men who compartmentalize relationships this way are fundamentally unable to see their partners as equals, deserving of honesty and commitment. Patrick could play devoted father when it suited him, concerned partner when questioned by police, and secret lover with Crystal Kenny, all while never having to integrate these roles into a coherent, authentic identity. The decade-long affair with Kenny that resumed while Patrick was engaged to Kelsey wasn't just cheating. It was evidence of his ability to live multiple lives simultaneously without psychological conflict. Normal people experience guilt and internal struggle when deceiving someone they claim to love. Patrick felt none of that because he never saw Kelsey as a real person with feelings and rights. Watch for partners who seem comfortable with elaborate lies and who can easily maintain separate social circles that never intersect. These aren't signs of someone protecting privacy. They're evidence of someone who views relationships as things to be managed rather than experienced authentically. Patrick's murder solicitations revealed the ultimate evolution of compartmentalized thinking. When Kelsey became inconvenient to his preferred life structure, he didn't consider compromise or honest communication. Instead, he began shopping for someone to eliminate the problem entirely. This is how men who see women as possessions think. When the possession becomes burdensome, you dispose of it. The isolation Patrick imposed on Kelsey was another critical red flag. By keeping her separated from his daily life and social connections, he ensured she had limited insight into his true character and behavior. Isolated partners can't easily verify their partner's claims or get outside perspectives on concerning behavior. Kelsey's move from Washington to Colorado for love represents a vulnerability that controlling men specifically target. When someone leaves their support system for a relationship, they become dependent on their partner for social connection and emotional validation. Patrick used this dependency to maintain control while offering minimal commitment in return. The refusal to visit Kelsey while expecting her to travel to him revealed Patrick's fundamental belief that relationships should serve his convenience without requiring reciprocal effort. This one-sided dynamic is a warning sign that someone views their partner as a service provider rather than an equal participant in the relationship. Perhaps most chilling was Patrick's ability to use their daughter as a prop in his murder plot. Men who truly love their children don't use them as cover for violence against their mothers. Patrick's willingness to traumatize Kaylee revealed that he saw both his daughter and Kelsey as objects that existed to serve his needs, rather than individuals deserving of protection and love. The red flags were everywhere: the compartmentalized life, the refusal to commit despite major relationship milestones, the maintenance of secret relationships, the geographic control, the one-sided expectations, and the casual way he planned murder when his preferred arrangements became inconvenient.
Lee was a co-defendant in the case and accepted a plea agreement for her role in cleaning up the crime scene. The defense also says there's not enough evidence in the case. Kelsey Berreth's body has never been found.
Kelsey Berreth died because she tried to build a genuine relationship with a man who was fundamentally incapable of seeing her as anything more than a possession to be managed. Her story serves as a warning about the deadly danger of men who live in compartments, keeping their lives carefully separated to avoid the vulnerability and accountability that real love requires. Trust the red flag when someone's life seems too organized, too separated, too controlled. When commitment feels conditional and convenience seems to be the primary relationship value, you may be dealing with someone whose capacity for violence is hidden behind a facade of normalcy.
There is good in this world, and she was a great example of that.
They never met Kelsey Berreth in person, but her story,
She's going to be one that's going to stick with me for a long time.
her story sticks with the people who worked to solve her murder.